Welcome to U.S. Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Automakers delay electric vehicle spending as demand slows. Viewed warily by Democrats, a Netanyahu ally is a key conduit to U.S. She to meet U.S. business executives for dinner in San Francisco. Biden's outreach to U.S. Arabs and Muslims falling flat amid Gaza war. Furious Trump heaped scorn on own lawyer, book says. Automakers delay electric vehicle spending as demand slows. New York Times. Slower than expected growth in electric vehicle, EV, sales in the U.S. has raised concerns about demand and cast doubt on federal tax credits for EV buyers. General Motors, Ford and Tesla recently announced delays to spending on EV development and production due to slower sales and concerns about the economy. The U.S. is on track to sell over 1 million EVs this year, accounting for a record 8% of new car sales, but growth has not kept pace with production. Car manufacturers are pushing to retool factories and building new ones to produce EVs and batteries, but if demand does not rise, the consequences could be severe. Sales of EVs in China and Europe have also slowed in recent months. While EV sales are growing faster than any other category of automobile, some once popular models are selling more slowly. Increased competition has also pushed down prices. Critics say that recent data suggests EVs are overhyped, but the uneven growth is not surprising as EVs move from being a niche product to a mass-market offering. Viewed warily by Democrats, a Netanyahu ally is a key conduit to U.S. New York Times. Ron Dermer, Israel's ambassador to the United States, has a fractious history with the Obama White House. During his time in Washington, Dermer clashed with Obama over the Iran nuclear agreement and the expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. He is also not a fan of the two-state solution, which Biden recently said was central to the post-war future of Israel and the Palestinians. However, American officials are at pains to say that Dermer's close ties to Netanyahu and his knowledge of the Washington political scene make him a valuable go-between in the current crisis. Several of Biden's top advisors, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, worked for Obama and have vivid memories of Israel's lobbying campaign against the Iran deal. Dermer is a member of Netanyahu's war cabinet and Israel's chief conduit to the Biden administration. She to meet U.S. business executives for dinner in San Francisco. Bloomberg. Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to attend a dinner with top U.S. business executives during his visit to San Francisco for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit next week. The U.S. and China have been working to stabilize relations this year, with officials from both nations visiting each other to lay the groundwork for a meeting between Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping at the summit. Xi's visit to the U.S. is aimed at calming foreign investors, as surveys show that Western executives in China are increasingly nervous about doing business there. The Chinese State Council Information Office has not yet commented on Xi's attendance at APEC. Biden's outreach to U.S. Arabs and Muslims falling flat amid Gaza war. Al Jazeera. Arab and Muslim Americans have expressed anger at the Biden administration's support for Israel during its war in Gaza. President Biden pledged his support for Israel and increased aid to the country. He also cast doubt on the death count in Gaza. The administration's outreach efforts, including a national strategy to combat Islamophobia, have been criticized by Palestinian rights advocates who say the efforts are falling short. A survey by the Arab American Institute last month showed a drastic decline in support for Biden among Arab Americans, with only 17% of respondents saying they would back the president, down from 59% in 2020. Similarly, an NBC News survey this week revealed that only 16% of Arab and Muslim respondents in the key swing state of Michigan would vote for Biden if the elections were held today. Muslim American advocates have pushed for formal U.S. measures to combat Islamophobia for years, which raises questions about the timing of last week's announcement. Last month, Biden described the thousands of civilian deaths in Gaza as the price of waging war. Furious Trump heaped scorn on own lawyer, book says. The Guardian. Donald Trump vented his frustration at his lawyers and the U.S. legal system in general during an appearance in court earlier this year, according to a new book by Jonathan Karl. The former president reportedly shouted at Todd Blanche, one of his lawyers, "That's in the middle of the primaries. If I lose the presidency, you're going to be the reason." Trump also ranted at other lawyers on his team, accusing them of wanting him to be indicted. Karl's book, Tired of Winning, Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party, will be published on November 14. It's election day. These are the races that matter. Washington Post. Republicans are insisting that a border policy proposal released Monday by a small group of Republicans led by Senator James Lankford, Oklahoma, be included in any emergency aid bill for Ukraine. Senate Democrats and the White House fiercely rejected the proposal on Monday. If the two parties can't work it out, the casualty will be $60 billion in aid to Ukraine. The proposal released by Lankford and Senators Lindsey Graham, Republican South Carolina, and Tom Cotton, Republican Arkansas, would make changes to the parole and asylum process in the immigration system as well as enhance U.S.-Mexico border security, including building portions of a border wall. Leaving a leadership meeting in Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's office Monday night, the number 2 Senate Republican, Whip John Thune, Republican South Dakota, sent a warning shot, saying Republicans will reject any Ukraine aid even if it's attached to a short-term government funding bill to keep the government open past November 17 without border policy changes. Senator John Cornyn, Republican Texas, was more direct, saying that Republicans would reject any effort to advance a Ukraine funding bill that doesn't address the border. But Democrats in the White House immediately rejected the Republican proposal. Senator Richard J. Durbin, Democrat Illinois, called it not a good starting point. A senior Democratic aide, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the proposal, dismissed it as a purely partisan proposal. Ukraine funding has become more tenuous for Republican senators to support as many of their voters have soured on sending more money for Ukraine. Biden's request for Israel, Ukraine and Taiwan included money for the border, but Republicans rejected it. I don't think the proposal Republicans put on the table today makes this easier, Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat Connecticut, said. I think it makes it harder. Republicans say they're open to negotiating their proposal with Democrats in the White House. Murphy said it must contain Democratic ideas and priorities regarding migrants coming to the border but also immigrants already in the United States, including, at a bare minimum, addressing undocumented dreamers who were brought to the country as children. We do not see anything in their proposal about creating an earned path to citizenship for dreamers and others, White House spokesperson Angelo Fernandez said, adding that they are open to a discussion. Schumer blasts Senate GOP border proposal as total non-starter. Yahoo! Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat New York, says the package of proposed border security reforms Republicans unveiled Monday is a total non-starter that will only imperil the chances of passing money for the war in Ukraine. What is the two-state solution for Israelis and Palestinians? Washington Post. Global leaders are returning to the idea of a two-state solution as Israel continues its bombardment and ground invasion of Gaza. President Biden has spoken in favor of a two-state solution, saying that after the crisis there has to be a vision of what comes next which involves a two-state solution. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has also discussed the long-term goal of a two-state solution with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. However, some scholars say a two-state solution is increasingly unlikely. There are significant challenges to the two-state solution, including where the borders would be drawn, the issue of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and the status of Jerusalem. Some scholars are suggesting alternative solutions, such as a confederation or a hybrid model of shared, overlapping, or what we call parallel states. A Rand Corporation study found significant opposition to both a two-state solution and a confederation in focus groups of Israelis and Palestinians, but some scholars still consider the concept viable. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Hex, your friendly neighborhood observer from the sixth dimension. Today, we have an interesting mix of news stories from around the world. Let's dive in. First up, automakers are hitting the brakes on electric vehicle spending as demand slows. General Motors, Ford, and Tesla have all announced delays in EV development and production due to slower sales and concerns about the economy. While EV sales are still growing faster than any other category of automobiles, the uneven growth is not surprising as EVs transition from being a niche product to a mass-market offering. So, it seems like the EV revolution might be hitting a speed bump, but don't worry, it's just a pit stop, not the end of the race. Moving on, we have Israel's ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, who has a complicated relationship with the Obama White House. Despite their differences, Dermer's close ties to Prime Minister Netanyahu and his knowledge of the Washington political scene make him a valuable go-between in the current crisis. It's like having a diplomatic GPS that knows all the shortcuts and backroads. So, Dermer might not be everyone's cup of tea, but he's certainly getting the job done. Next, Chinese President Xi Jinping is set to have dinner with top U.S. business executives during his visit to San Francisco. This comes as both countries are working to stabilize their relations, with hopes for a meeting between Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping at the upcoming summit. Xi's visit aims to calm foreign investors who have been growing increasingly nervous about doing business in China. It's like Xi is trying to say, hey guys, we're open for business, come on in. Let's hope the dinner is as fruitful as a fortune cookie. Moving on, President Biden's outreach to Arab and Muslim Americans seems to be falling flat amid the Gaza war. His support for Israel and increased aid to the country has angered many in these communities. It's like trying to make friends at a party but accidentally stepping on everyone's toes. The administration's efforts to combat Islamophobia are also being criticized for falling short. It's a tough balancing act for Biden, but he better start doing some fancy footwork if he wants to regain their support. In other news, a new book claims that Donald Trump vented his frustration at his lawyers and the U.S. legal system during a court appearance. He even shouted at one of his lawyers, blaming him for potential failure in the primaries. It's like a reality TV show gone wrong, where the star starts arguing with the scriptwriters. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Lastly, we have the ongoing battle over Ukraine aid in the U.S. Senate. Republicans are insisting on including a border policy proposal in any emergency aid bill for Ukraine, while Democrats and the White House are rejecting it. It's like a political tug-of-war where Ukraine's fate hangs in the balance. Let's hope they can figure it out before the aid becomes collateral damage. Well, folks, that's all the news for today. Remember, these are just snapshots of the world we live in. It's a crazy place, full of ups and downs, twists and turns. But hey, that's what makes it interesting, right? Now it's your turn to join the discussion. What are your thoughts on these stories? Let's hear it from the audience. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.